The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the off-brand reagent, wielded by the off-brand Freddy Krueger, that is Eric Velazquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yep, so this week... This week we're talking about ReAgitator, Revenge of the Parody.
Are we?
And it's actually, I think it accidentally pairs really well with what we watched last week, because it's also a crazy mess, but it's a lot more fun, so I'm a lot more willing to ride through a crazy mess when it's fun.
Yeah, so I will say that I feel that even though this movie calls itself a parody, it's more of an art piece. But it's kind of a fun art piece.
Yeah, there are moments of it that just like is no longer a parody. There's just like these extended segments that really don't have anything, they're almost like music videos in a few places and just like
Yes. Yes. This is weird. It's like somebody got a group of musicians together and decided, let's make a movie. Let's look at that cast list. Wait a second real quick. We have the guy from the Arrows who originally wrote I Love Rock and Roll, Voltaire, Scully. Wait a second, this is a bunch of musicians that got together and made a movie.
Yeah, Schooly D as the president is just, that's fantastic. And it's obvious that his scenes, they just like filmed them all at once somewhere else and he didn't have anything else to do with the movie, but it works. It's fine.
I love the fact that half the time he's reading directly from the script. He just has it down and out of camera. Yeah. But he's looking down just enough to where that's what he's looking at. He's looking at the script. But you know what? Any movie with Schooly D's are... Well, I say that now, but let me look up other movies with Schooly D to make sure I'm not going to get in trouble on that. So right now I'm going to say it's pretty good. Yeah. All right. So this is a wild one from the word go. I'm going to go ahead and give a content warning right out the gate. There is full frontal male and female nudity. The violence is too cartoonish to really be worried about, but if you don't like fake blood, I guess avoid this. Also spit. Oh, avoid it if you do not like spit. I had several. I did not know I did not like spit that much. I learned something about myself.
That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, let's get into this. So it starts. There are several scenes throughout this that feature a character who I think is just called the author. I don't know if he's ever named beyond that. He calls himself the author, and it's just black and white scenes of a guy in a fancy high back chair, like Masterpiece Theater kind of style thing. But he's sort of like the narrator for the movie. He just kind of pops in occasionally and gives you some exposition and then dips back out.
Right. He's played by a person known as Mr. Lobo. And he's kind of a personality in kind of the horror realm. If you know a lot of horror, you've probably at least seen, he's I think, a horror host.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to a degree. So, he's been in the circle for quite some time.
Yeah. And so he just, at the beginning, he just kind of introduces you to the film, says, you're going to be taking a trip into the heart of our main character, who is named Dr. Orbert Westcraft.
This cheese is made of homage.
Yeah, this whole movie is like, if you go to the Dollar Tree and there's just like those fake Power Rangers that are just called like action hero or something.
Right.
You know?
This is the reanimator we have at home.
Yeah, exactly.
To be fair, it's kind of a lot of movies. It's not just Reanimator.
Yeah, there's some other stuff kind of squeezed in there too. Obviously, Reanimator is the big one, but they even kind of nod to that at the end in a pretty hilarious little joke.
Yeah. You know, obviously, I think for the most part we can easily say this is an amateur cast, but they do it with love.
Oh yeah,
there's so much gusto in this. It's so good.
yeah. So so after the author introduces us, we get the credits, and these look like end credits to me. Like, you know, the thing you get, like the one I always think of is like Chopping Mall, but like the thing at the end of a lot of movies where it's like we just get a little clip of that character that freeze frames and then has like the actor's name under it and stuff. It's kind of that, but it's like,
right.
you know, kind of, it doesn't really spoil anything, but you're just getting a bunch of clips of the movie you're about to see before you see it.
Yeah. It's really odd. It's kind of like, you know, in at the end of Predator, where you see all of the actors that were in the movie, but they all smile at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so yeah, after the credits, we cut to President Schoolie D, as we mentioned. He's giving a speech on TV, and like we see the TV. I think this TV, you see it several times throughout the movie, but it's kind of like people are watching it in different locations. But this TV has like graffiti on it, and it's like
the boob tube.
Yeah, so it's definitely the same TV, but it's like somebody's watching it at a hotel room, and then later it's just kind of like the TV they use. But the president's like giving a speech. He does mention that this is the 1960s, like explicitly says that in his speech, and then says like the "ask not what your country can do for you" line. I think he kind of switches it up, and I can't ask
There's
what I can do.
a lot of mixed metaphors.
Yeah. And then we get a dinner party, a quote unquote dinner party.
Right. By the way, can we talk about how Schoolie D goes out on his, I guess, State of the Union?
Yeah.
The 60s will be a time of, what is it, no violence and assassination? If only.
Yeah. Yeah, like everything about this movie is very tongue-in-cheek, and setting it in the 1960s just gives them the chance to like show like a lack of self-awareness because, you know, not having the hindsight when we do.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But yeah, so then we get this group of people. They're having a party, and they're all just sitting around a completely bare table that just has a watermelon sitting in the middle of it. And this is not like a cut watermelon that they're all like preparing to eat slices of. This is just a whole ass watermelon just sitting there in the middle of the table.
Yeah, as mentioned, we have Alan Merrill, the guy from the Arrows that I mentioned earlier, with his presumable wife, or I'm sorry, he's Alan Merriweather, not Merrill. But the character is Alan Merriweather with his wife Claudia, and everyone's dogpiling Claudia, talking about how great she doesn't look.
Yeah. So yeah, apparently she's sick of, you know, it's kind of similar to the girl in Bride of Reanimator. Like she's just, you know, sick. Like we're not gonna go to the trouble to figure out what she is sick with or why, but she's just not looking so healthy, and everybody's worried that she's not going to be around much longer.
Yeah, and she's certain that it's terminal, but you know, we'll find out in the future if that's true or not.
Yeah, so they talk about that they are going to see Dr. Vildoff Kleiman. He's supposed to be a specialist that might be able to help them, and then we cut this is so bad, like that it's kind of intentionally bad, and maybe one of my like favorite little moments of the movie. They're driving to the doctor, and you know, like the old style rear projection thing where it's just people sitting in an unmoving car and they've got like the background behind them moving or whatever. But
right,
it's
well, this one's a front projection, right?
Yeah. So like you can see the trees and stuff going by on the actors' faces.
They couldn't make it any more clear. They're just in a room. I think Alan Merrill's holding a paper plate as the steering wheel.
Yeah.
It's
one of those things where it's like, if we don't have the budget to do it right, let's make sure that people know we're doing it wrong on purpose in like a really hysterically silly way.
Right. I feel like this definitely has some John Waters DNA splashed in there somewhere.
Oh, definitely.
Somebody ought to call the police about that.
Yeah, so then they get to the doctor, and like he's pretty much just like, yeah, you're gonna die. Like, there's no saving you. And Alan is, in denial. He refuses to accept it, and he yells, "Love is immortal," which ends up being like a line that gets yelled a couple of times in this movie.
Well, I like how, like, even before they see, like, Kleiman, Alan, they zoom in on Alan drinking water. And it's like, what the hell is that? Why are you showing me this? I don't know if the scene was intentionally out of order, but it turns out Kleiman is actually good friends with Dr., or we'll say Orbert, because I'm not going to say all that. It's that kind of movie. It's just, we're going to call him Orbert. Anyway, and it turns out that he slipped Alan some LSD.
Yeah. So they leave, and the doctor calls Orbert and is like, "I've got another one for you. I gave him the LSD." And then we just get a psychedelic scene that really doesn't forward the plot in any way other than that, yep, we know Alan's on acid, and it's just trippy, weird colors swirling, and he's just kind of stumbling around, acting high.
So for those of you keeping track on the video-o-meter, this is ding number 1.
Yep, so then we just see them back at home, and Claudia sneaks downstairs to see their servant. We saw him earlier. They just kind of treated him really shitty at the dinner party. His name is Verum.
Right.
Just Verum.
Played by Voltaire, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Verum, the lovesick butler.
Yeah. So they kind of have this conversation. She wants to leave her husband for him, but, obviously, like, everybody's concern is that she's going to die, so it doesn't seem like it's really worth shaking up her life a bunch. But I think, it's kind of one of those things where, like, she doesn't have anything else to lose at this point, so she wants to do what she wants, basically.
Yeah.
And she actually shouts, "Love is immortal," in this scene as well. Verum says something about, like, one man will die to save your... Who says that?
No. So that was Orbert at the end of Alan's
in his drug trip. Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote this in there and I was like, wait, who
one man
said...
will die to save your wife. Make sure it isn't you, Alan.
Yeah. So because of that, Alan decides he's going to send Claudia to see Orbert, but he's going to send Verum with her instead of going on his own.
Yeah, he could trust Verum. Verum's never...
Yeah. Yeah, so they meet Orbert, who instantly reveals himself to just be like a total weirdo. He does like the Wizard of Oz hologram projector kind of gag and tries to scare them.
No one's going to save you, no knight in shining armor. It's like, okay, well, tell everyone that you're the bad guy of the movie, why don't you?
And then he's like, "Oh, that whole trick, that was a gift that my friend Georges Méliès gave me."
Right.
So, like, the timeline there, Méliès would have been long dead in the 60s, I believe. So,
right.
But, he was definitely into that kind of weird projection time. And after this, I think we cut to a couple scenes of just Méliès movies at various points throughout the movie.
The whole moon with the bullet in the eye.
Yeah, and I think there's one or two others, but, like, they're, it's like 2-second long little things just intercut randomly. Orbert says that he doesn't want money, he just wants to use them for research. Like, he doesn't actually, this is all scientific, so it's very similar to the Herbert West that we've seen previously. And he does mention that his wife died and that's why he wants to figure this out. So there's some kind of Frankensteinian stuff there as well.
Yeah. By the way, I do like the fact that Verum, I don't know if this was an intentional reference to the meme, but he goes, "Claudia, she's very sick." For those of you who are like, "My son, he's very sick." Yeah, okay. All right.
And we do get to see that Orbert's reagent is red instead of green. Mm-hmm. So to avoid copyright infringement, I guess.
Can you copyright? I guess maybe you can. It's iconic. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, so then, like, Orbert takes Claudia back to his lab and then pretty much immediately comes back out and tells Verum, "Well, sorry, it didn't work. I couldn't save her. She died. See you later."
Right. And then we have music video number 2 where Verum goes running through the halls in utter shock and despair.
Yeah, he's just, like, heartbroken, just starts running, jumps out a window, falls into a swimming pool, And so I was like, oh, okay, he's fine. But then, like, later, it's kind of revealed that no, apparently he did die. Like, the pool did not break his fall well enough. So he died, and then we go back to Orbert, who is talking to Claudia. Mm-hmm. And she's like, where's Verum? And he's like, oh, he went out to get some cigarettes. He'll be back shortly.
Yeah.
And then we get a silent film title card that just pops up and says, alas, deception.
Right. These title cards are great. There's going to be a few more really good ones.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, this movie is really quick to lay its cards all on the table, so don't take anything seriously that's happening here. No. After that, there's, like, another hallucination scene, right? Like, with his dead wife?
Yes.
And, like, she's like, you could have saved me.
Yeah, I think that's the one where she's in her bikini. She, like, just walks or first off, she does say, yeah, you could save me and blah, 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 blah. Or you promised to save me. And then all of a sudden it just cuts to her, like, getting up in a bikini and just, like, in high heels and just walking through a little garden.
Yeah, there's like it's a long scene of her just walking. You see her from the front, from the back. The camera's just kind of following her around, and then we get like a flashback. So I don't know if there's like a flashback of Orbert talking to her, and I don't know if her walking around was part of the flashback or part of the hallucination.
Yeah, time has no meaning here.
Yeah. But he's talking to her about his reanimation experiments.
She accuses him of playing God.
Yeah. He's like, there's been some problems, but I think I found the key. And she says, like, how dare you play God? He talks about that he had a dog that died when he was a kid.
Respect. I'll put some respect on that.
Yeah.
But of course she's like, yeah, we've all lost people.
Yeah.
Liz, what are you doing?
And then we get a scene of Orbert and Elizabeth, and they're eating ice cream while there's voiceover of them talking. But, like, it's not... Yeah, it's just... I think it was like, oh, we can't sync sound, so we're just going to do it this way. It's easier. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, visually, they're just, like, hanging out on a little, ice cream date, just having ice cream together. And then, like, in the voiceover, she's like, I'm sick, I'm going to die soon.
Right.
And
just casual. I'm going to die soon. By the way, we forgot to mention that whenever he comes back to Liz, mentioning that he's almost discovered it, he may or may not have inadvertently created a cult of the dead. He just casually drops that one into conversation. As you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Liz is sick, going to die.
Yep. And so then, like, the next scene is just, like, her laying in this round bed, lifeless. She just kind of is laying there. And then you just see Orbert just smashing, like, everything in their house. Right. Which, their house is just this... I think this is just filmed in an abandoned building.
Yeah, it's gotta be. Like, most of the beginning of this movie has to be filmed in an abandoned area. Because there's graffiti everywhere.
Just... Yeah, graffiti on everything. It's just, like... brick walls with no windows, no doors. Like, it's just...
Everything's rusted.
Everything is in shambles. Yeah. But yeah, so he just, smashes some stuff in this place that everything is already pretty smashed and terrible, so it doesn't do too much damage.
Not at all.
But then he, like, takes off all of her clothes.
As you do.
And carries her to a heart-shaped bathtub that's just, like, built into the floor in this place.
Right. Just gingerly places her down. And, of course, at the very end of the scene, there is actually kind of a moment that got me, and I was like, all right, I see you, is when the heart, and effectively Liz as well, breaks.
Yeah.
The camera breaks, and it's like, okay, I respect that.
Yeah, they just kind of, like, draw a zigzag line down the middle
basically.
Of this.
I didn't say it was good.
I thought it was fantastic too. Because the heart-shaped tub, I was like, come on.
Right, yeah.
And then they did that, and I was like, all right, you earned that.
Yeah.
You got me.
It was like very art, much drama, and then, okay.
At this point, the author pops back in and just gives you some exposition. Basically, the plan is if Wes can't, or if Westcraft can reanimate Claudia, then her blood might be like a super reagent that he could even still reanimate Elizabeth, even though she's been dead a while.
Right. Yeah, that's a wild train of thought. It's like, first I have to get my reagent, put it in this one person. They have to die, but come back with the reagent in their system. Then I can take their blood and put it in my wife to keep her alive forever.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are we clear?
Yeah. Clear as mud,
exactly.
which we're headed towards some muddy puddle here
Yeah,
in a minute.
boy, let's talk about muddy water here. We get after that, he takes Claudia and basically gives her what looks like a baptism in very muddy water.
Yeah.
Like, I would not have laid down in that. I'd be like, man, we got to find another pond. Like, there's tetanus. This thing's full of tetanus. Just lousy with the stuff.
Yeah, I'm already willing to be in your movie for like free, probably free beer, and that's it. But I'm not getting hepatitis C too.
Right, jeez.
But so he also, like, after he like dunks her in the water, he injects her with the reagent.
And the last breath, or the last breath. Yeah. Oh man, that was a good one. That card.
Yeah. And then we get Claudia in like something similar to our last movie, this sort of like dark place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, apparently everyone envisions hell or hell-like dimensions as very oily and just black oil stuff.
Yeah. But in this case, she's sort of like floating in midair, completely naked.
Full frontal, yeah.
And you can see sort of like black water kind of underneath her. And then she sort of like floats up, and then we cut to the weirdest scene in this very weird movie.
Right.
Which is just her hovering above a rooftop, like a city building.
With 4 other naked people just running around, like fully naked. Like
So yeah, she's naked off in the distance, and then you got these 4 people, and it's like, I think it's like 2... apparently cis men, 1 apparently cis woman, and then like a trans woman, and they're kind of running in a circle, kind of like maypole style, but it's one of the like barrier
McDonald's, literally McDonald's branded. Like, you have the golden arches on this bad boy.
Yeah, there's like red things that are like close to the drive-through, so you don't hit the building, basically.
And it's like there's so many penises in this thing that's got to be some type of phallic image. I mean, it is phallic imagery all around.
Yeah, oh yeah, we'll get plenty of phallic imagery in this movie. But this scene, it goes on for a very long. It's basically a music video. A whole song plays, and the camera just like zooms in on every body part.
Part. We go top to bottom on everybody. Quite literally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then by the end of it, they all start sort of like foaming at the mouth. I think they basically just all put like some sort of like...
Yeah. It's blue Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah. And they just like foam liquid out onto themselves, and then the camera gets to take another pass as the foam drips down their naked bodies.
Yeah. Did we mention there's a lot of nudity in this one? Okay. Just making sure.
And then from there, we get back to West, or
West.
I keep calling him West.
That's why I call him Orbert.
Yeah, it makes it a little easier. And he's still in the pond, and he just yells, "Yes, it worked!"
It finally worked.
And then we go back to the author, who points out that Verum didn't actually die in the pool.
No, he went to another universe.
Yeah, but he's so attached to Claudia that he's trapped between life and death. And so there's a way that he could maybe come back to our plane of existence.
Right, which sets up something later in the movie, but we'll get there when we get there. And then we have, like, he runs into this, like, lady who's just spouting nonsense of, like, what lies behind the door? What lies behind the door?
Yeah, she says it like 15 or 20 times.
It loses all meaning.
And then there's just like an old Tin Pan Alley kind of song, something about like on the back porch or something, and she lip syncs basically the whole song.
Which,
just
hope you like that, because it comes back a couple times.
Yeah, this song, it's definitely an old song. I'm sure it's public domain. Most of the music in this feels like it's like from indie artists and stuff, and like a lot of it's like really good.
It's really good. Like if you just want to like turn everything off and just listen to the music, it's great.
Like if they had a soundtrack of this, like I would buy 100%. It. I actually like took, wrote down a bunch of the band names. I'm gonna try to track, and I realized that like a lot of the movies that we're watching for this don't just have like pop music in them. No. That's not really fitting with the style of what we're watching usually. So it was kind of a strange sort of change of pace.
Right.
But yeah, so then once she like does her song, we go back to Orbert and Claudia, and she's alive now, like as he said, it worked. But she's speaking with this like, traditional voice, like distorted demon voice kind of thing.
Yeah. Like she's possessed.
Yeah. Orbit says that he wants to give her eternal life, but she says something about that, she knows that she's being used to save Orbit's wife.
Yeah, she basically repeats the plot of the movie up to this point, where it's like,
yeah,
you're just gonna use my blood to resurrect your wife. And then she does something slightly unexpected. She raises her hand and starts shooting beams out at Orbit.
yeah. Oh, but also in this scene, Orbit says dubious.
Right.
Which felt like it had, I know that's kind of like a nerd word that you just, if you want to make somebody look like a weird nerd, they're going to say long words like dubious.
Right.
But it still kind of felt like it was nodding to Beyond ReAnimator.
It very well could have been a nod to that.
But yeah, so she starts shooting him with laser beams from her hands.
That'd be a handy trick if she had that later on in the movie, huh?
Yeah, whatever happened to
that? Spoiler alert, sorry about that.
So yeah, but she just runs away from him. He chases after her, and then she breaks through some railing. They're up on a catwalk kind of place. They're still at the same sort of abandoned. It looks like it was a factory or something. Yeah. And I thought she was going to die, but apparently she just gets away.
Presumably she rips up the railing and jumps off because she's now superhuman, effectively, I guess.
Yeah, but so then we go to Orbit, and he reanimates Elizabeth, and he's like, this isn't as good as I'd hoped because I don't have as much of Claudia's blood as I'd intended to get, but she got away, so we have to try to track her down now. So in the meantime, Elizabeth's in this sort of half reanimated zombie kind of state.
I believe we're at music video number 3 at this point.
Yeah.
It's very clear, prostitute imagery. There's the song also refers to, I think, streetwalkers and things like that. So it's okay, there's symbolism here. Interesting. Yeah. We haven't seen, we've rarely seen that one before, but I'll take it.
Yeah, and she seems really kind of in a daze, though. She's very much it seems like she's drugged, but it's just sort of probably a result of the reanimation process.
Yeah, she's freshly reanimated.
And she runs into this woman who says, "Hi, I'm your friend from Norway. Remember me?" And
right.
She's like, "Oh yeah, I definitely remember you, friend from Norway."
Yeah, it turns out this is Maud. We're going to get to know her very well, at least our daughter in the future.
Yeah.
But by the way, she drops a great, it's very dark joke, but I chuckled because that's the kind of humor I'm into. She says, "Hey, remember that joke I used to tell you, the one about the girl who took the polite pills and got pregnant? When they go to deliver the babies, each one of the babies goes, 'No, after you, after you, after you, after you.'" Until she didn't have the babies no more.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. Oof. Maud's kind of great.
Yeah, she's so she takes Claudia back to her apartment.
Turns out
they have dinner, and Claudia is still in her demon voice this whole time. She says something about I can see beyond the realms of space or something.
Right.
She
just casual dinner conversation.
It's very Lovecraftian, and Maud is just taking it in stride. It does not faze her one bit.
Right, kind of makes you wonder what Claudia was like before.
Yeah,
because she mentions that they used to be really good friends, and they start getting intimate and talking about things like that, and they mention that it was just you and me versus the world at one point. So they kind of have, and they proceed to start having sex at this point.
Yeah, and it's a weird, because Maud definitely seems sort of she's oblivious to what's going on with Claudia, but also Claudia is just so catatonic that it feels a little creepy because it's there's definitely no sign of her consenting to this. Yeah. But Maud just kind of undresses her and then starts kissing her, but then at some point Claudia just sort of goes into reanimated zombie violent mode and just kills Maud.
Now when she does this, I think maybe this is my twisted imagination just forcing it on the scene. I think so she jumps on Maud and basically bites into her neck, technically eating her, right? Then she just gets up and walks out of the room. Now I swear to you that I think that this was a actual visual joke. I swear that it's a take on the koala that goes to the prostitute, and after they have sex, doesn't pay her, just walks out. The prostitute runs after the koala. I'm definitely mistelling this. Don't worry about that. But the prostitute goes after the koala, and he's like, "Listen, what do koalas do?" He shows her the dictionary. Eats bushes and leaves. Maybe I'm forcing this onto this movie, but I'm like, that was the visual joke. It had to be. But that's me. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, with this movie, like that wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Right.
So yeah, she walks out and she runs into a little girl who asks, where's my mother? And she's like, she's sleeping.
Right.
And the girl's like, are you the boogeyman?
And
she's just like,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
She walks out and she runs into like a street preacher, basically a guy who's yelling about the end is near.
Let's not walk out on the fact that as she walks away, she's like walking out of the building. You hear the little girl open the room, or you see the little girl open the room, and then we have the kind of stock scream and crashing glasses and all that stuff to let you know the kid's good and traumatized.
Oh yeah. Yeah, which we'll definitely come back to.
It will. Surprisingly, I did not see that coming.
So she runs into this guy, he's like, the end is near, they want our blood, and she kills him and takes his blood. Mm-hmm. And then Alan, Claudia's husband, contacts Orbert and wants to know where his wife is.
Right.
And Orbert's like, I gave her life, I'll show you.
Yeah, just come with me.
Yeah. And then we cut back to Claudia, and she kind of just wanders into this church where she ends up kind of meeting the zombie cult that
Cult
Wes
of the
was
Dead.
talking about earlier. Yeah. So she just kind of meets them, and then we cut again. This movie has a lot of like little snippet scenes that kind of go back and forth.
Yeah.
So then we're introduced to Lloyd Kaufman playing the
chief of police.
the chief of police, who is, I guess, Maud's husband or ex-husband.
Do you know what? It changes, honestly, because at one point Maud's his daughter and Margaret's his granddaughter, but then Margaret becomes his daughter. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's very unclear.
Listen, I don't think he knows, because his first line in the movie is, I gots to have some Jesus juice, as he snorts a line. I've never heard it called that. I've heard it called nose candy and a bunch of other things, but not Jesus juice.
Yeah. But yeah, so you don't, like, at first you don't realize he's a police officer, because you see him, he's snorting cocaine, and then like a police woman walks in and is like, your daughter is dead. Then he just like starts firing his pistol everywhere. And like it has, like, that clip is huge in that pistol, because he does it for a while.
Right. And that 6-shot revolver, he's got 20 shots. Like, I feel like this is also a reference to like Major Kong from Dr. Strangelove to a degree. Like, just
I can see that.
Just how wildly he just goes off the freaking rails and so easily.
And once he, quote unquote, calms down, stops shooting the gun, he then goes on this long rant that he's going to train his granddaughter to be a killing machine who's going to be just purely driven by vengeance. He's going to just erase all humanity from this little girl and just focus her completely. And like, this speech goes on for a while, but yeah, the general idea is he's going to turn her into like a vengeance killing machine.
Yeah, we're seeing the origin of Hit Girl, but in kind of a horror movie.
Yeah. And so then, of course, the next thing is our next music video, which is a lengthy training montage. Which is so long that it's like the little girl for a while, and then you get a title card that says 6 years later, and the montage just continues, and we've got the adult version of her training. So a 6-year-long music video.
Effectively,
basically. And I mean, she's like boxing and shooting machine guns, like, it's she's learning how to do anything that involves killing people.
Yeah, so clearly this is the moment when the parody starts shining through. I mean, it's always shining through, but this is obvious parody.
Yeah,
to everything. All right, then we have a little bit of a storm going on outside. You got the thunder, you got the lightning, you got the bad effects over the building. Now we have in the room, we have Orbert, Liz, and I don't know if this person is meant to be trans, non-binary, but we do eventually learn that their name is Sandy. And Orbert wants Sandy to do a sexy dance for him.
Yeah, and like there's, he's like, I paid you to dance, like, because like Sandy tries to like talk. So Sandy kind of dances. It's kind of uncomfortable, and then like Orbert just shoots him, and then Elizabeth drinks their blood. Right. Then we get the TV, the same like boob tube TV, and Orbert is watching the news, and we just get like a good exposition scene of the police chief is hunting, the hunt for the police chief's daughter's killer continues. And, there's also been some similar blood-drained corpses near the Chelsea Hotel, which is the hotel we saw Orbert and Elizabeth going into. And then we cut to a forensic expert who's going to talk about the case.
Who's in the woods for some reason. Literally written on the screen.
Yeah, it feels like maybe they're just like, oh shit, we forgot to record that. We'll just film it in your backyard. It's fine. And yeah, so she just like is talking about the case, and it's just this woman just standing in the woods.
Yeah. By the way, we'll learn that the first reporter, is named Hippie. We'll just say Malone. It's easier. And the next one is Michaela.
Yeah. And part of her exposition is she says they believe that the killer was last seen at an abandoned church.
It's like,
and so Orbert's like, oh, that's probably the church of my failed, undead creations.
Yeah.
I know where she is.
And then wonderful Orbert says a slur, and then no more slurs for Liz. We're gonna be eating good tonight. Yeah. At that point, we then cut to the director, who is playing, the director being Dylan Mars Greenberg. I believe they are trans woman, playing Miss Madison, Hippie and Michaela's boss.
Yeah, and so she is, it's that, like, you see this more with, like, cop scenes,
right,
with, like, bosses, but it feels like that buddy cop scene where it's like, yeah, you've let me down for the last time, So basically she's like, people don't want to hear these kind of stories. They want like fun, happy, light stories. So I want you to go cover the hippie parade. Everybody likes the hippie parade.
Yeah.
But of course they're like hooked on this case, so they're like, we could, on our off time, we're going to solve this case basically.
Yeah.
I think the first thing we see they talk about that they're going to keep investigating the murders. And then we right away have them interviewing Sandy's roommate. Like, he kind of doesn't give him a lot of useful information, but he does like specifically mention that there was like a weird couple with like a creepy lady, and very much Orbert and Elizabeth.
Yeah, the wife looks like a zombie. Like she could really be a zombie. She's wearing a veil over her face, everything.
But he does mention that, like, if they're looking for more info, they should go to the Information Man.
The Information Man. What the hell?
And so they go to the Information Man.
Dude's just sitting there playing a ukulele. I mean, that's fine in and of itself, but that's, like, he's being really creepy about it, and he just keeps getting worse. Here's the first thing with the weird spit. I forget exactly what he's talking about because I was so traumatized, but he works up a loogie and decides he's going to show it off to the camera, and I'm like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah. Most of what he's saying is just, like, pure nonsense. And we have some, like, montage scenes of him, like, running and rolling around with the ukulele. Yeah. But then, like, at the end, he finally starts kind of giving them some useful information and says they should go talk to the police chief. He says the police chief's daughter, Margaret East. Yeah. And so this is when we get, like, confusion, because it should be the chief's granddaughter, theoretically. Right. So they do follow that lead, and they go
casually walk into her apartment, Hippie does. And... being the stout and strong, stalwart warrior that Margaret now is, she's sleeping. And Hippie basically sneaks up on her while she's sleeping in front of a wall of, presumably they're supposed to be articles about what's been going on, but they're all just ads from like the dollar store. That's all.
But yeah, so they talk to Margaret a little bit, which, like the name Margaret East, just quick, like, so they basically have parodied Herbert West twice with two different characters, which is just fantastic. She's like, says that she knows that it's like an undead person that's responsible for her mom's death, and that she's ready to go, kill this undead person. Hippie is like, we want to help. And then, like, we cut back to the police chief, who is on the phone with the president.
Both of them cussing each other, clearly not even having the exact same conversation. Like, this was ad-libbed. And I'm not sure who was doing more of the ad-libbing. I feel like it was Lloyd Kaufman.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, it just seems right. Basically, we find out through their conversation, they used to be friends, but now the police chief, Lloyd, is out for vengeance. That's all he desires now. He's got to kill the people who's killed his daughter or granddaughter or, wait, wife?
Yeah. And we find out that, so early at the beginning of this, they set the movie in the 1960s, but we find out that the police chief and the president, they were friends because they fought together in World War V.
Hell yeah. That's amazing.
And the whole time that, like usually this is kind of something that you would have brought up, but like, it caught my eye so much that I couldn't resist writing it down. But the whole time that like Lloyd is talking, there's a poster behind him that just says, "Have you seen this duck?"
Yeah.
And it's just got a picture of a duck. It's like,
I didn't see the duck. No.
So they're kind of like at odds about how things should be handled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because clearly Lloyd just wants to nuke something. And then you have the president who's like, actually the responsible one. He's like, we're not going to just drop a nuke for no reason.
Yeah.
Come on, man. And I guess we learned that Lloyd was a general, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's interesting.
And so then we get the author again, and he says something about that, like, years have passed. And I thought at first that he was saying, like, years have passed from, like, that conversation with the president and the police chief. But I think he just means from the death of Maude, like, years have passed. Because, it was kind of confusing for a minute. But, yep, so years have passed. And now we go back to Claudia at the Cult of the Undead.
Yep.
And
turns out Claudia's been busy.
Yeah, she's basically like moved up in the ranks. She's like a high-ranking
priestess of the undead.
Yeah, basically.
Fair enough.
And they all know that Orbert is responsible for their situation, and they want to get revenge on him, and they also want to resurrect Ogoroth, the patron god of the undead.
Wait, I thought that was Orcus. D&D, you've lied to me. But then they proceed to have a dance party. They have a literal dead man's ball.
Yeah. It's another music video,
Right.
just this song called Dancer in the Dark, and they just dance in the dark for a while.
Is this 5 or 6?
Yeah. In fact, does the dance... Or no, there's like another dance scene in a little bit. I was thinking the dance scene went on so long it was 2 songs. But nope, there's another dance scene with a different song in a little bit.
Yep.
But in between that, the reporters, Yulpy and Michaela, they are walking along city streets, and they just kind of coincidentally run into Orbert and Elizabeth.
Hey, you want to have a good time? Says Orbert. And they're like, wait a second, this is the guy. Surely.
Yeah, like they recognize the description of Elizabeth. So Orbert thinks that they are either he thinks they're sex workers or he thinks that they're like, up for a good time,
Right.
either way. And like Michaela's like, no, but Yulpy is like, oh,
Yep, this is
yep, we're down. So they all kind of go back to the hotel room, and then we get another extended dance scene where they're kind of like sort of doing a strip tease, but they surprisingly don't get fully naked, considering the way the rest of this movie's gone.
Yulpy gets a little close. I mean, she gets down to the underwear, but doesn't go much further. But remember, of course, Orbert being awful says the sexier you dance, the more money you get, the more cash you receive.
And so they kind of like at a few points during this dance scene, they just like turn with their backs to him and like bend over like football huddle style.
Right. Have a whole conversation.
And yeah. They're like, okay, so I'm going to distract him. You do this.
Right. By the way, they do kind of set something up where there is a hand reaching for a machete. And I was thinking it was Liz's hand, but we'll see whose hand it really is in here in a bit. Or it could have been Liz's hand. And they just changed it.
But yeah, so they end up, there's a fight scene then, like Orbert does pull out the machete and they like sort of wrestle with him a little bit. It's
Yulpy goes for him, Michaela goes for the camera, and then Liz's face. Apparently they stashed a camera there.
Yeah.
We didn't see it.
Yeah. And like, yeah, they're undressed, but somehow, they got a camera still. Yeah. Michaela gets a bunch of photos of, zombie Elizabeth.
Yeah, her face.
And they manage to escape.
Yep.
And then they're like, okay, so we need to go to the cult church.
Yep.
But first they join up with Margaret and the Information Man. They end up, like, they go into the church, and, like, the church is actually just sort of like an empty church.
Yeah.
But then...
Turns out we're playing Dark Souls, baby, and Margaret knows how to open the key to the lifts. Because That's exactly what she does. She just, like, there's a freaking, like, what is it, a valve wheel in the middle of the church that she just cranks?
Yeah.
Like, this is some Resident Evil / Dark Souls shit.
Yeah. So, yeah, they open up a secret passage and go down into the basement of the church where, you know, this is where the sort of, like, dance club, we saw the dance earlier. But before they get to that, they run into just, like, dollar store Freddy Krueger.
Right. Brody Brugger.
Yeah. He doesn't have the, like, finger blades, but it's
just
he's wearing the sweater, wearing the hat. And, like, he also says bitch an excessive amount of times, so you know he's Freddy Krueger.
I think we have another music video here where they're just kind of fighting, like Scooby-Dooing almost.
Yeah. And ultimately, Information Man manages to chop off his head. And then I think he says something like, you know, he calls him a bitch, too.
Oh, no. The undead have the best rings, bitches.
Oh, yes, the rings.
This man is Sonic with his rings. He loves them more. I'm telling you.
Yeah, so it's like, it feels like a non sequitur. He's like, the only reason I killed him was just because I wanted his ring. And it's like, oh, okay. And then as the movie goes on, you're like, oh, no, like, that's this guy's thing.
Right.
Like, Information Man is kind of not really he should just be like the ring man.
He is Ringu.
It's all he cares about.
He is the true Ringu of the movie.
Yeah, so then we cut back to the chief and the female police officer
Deputy
talking. And she's like, you haven't investigated any murders in 5 years.
Right, there's been a recent murder. We haven't seen one in 5 or 6 years. We've only investigated your daughter's murder.
Which one, like, you know, imagine nobody investigating a murder in New York for but also earlier during the training montage they said it was 6 years.
Right. Oh yeah, you're right. She does say 5 years.
They just like forgot basically.
Right.
But yep, so then we cut to there's like a guy on a beach who is summoning Ogaroth.
Oh, we're not going to talk about how he just literally flew? Like, by the way, the I guess, I don't know if she was the high priestess. I think maybe she was credited as the demon cheerleader. I'm not sure. But, like, she sends her best guy, who is apparently the Demon King, played by Josefat Concepcion, to the Canary Islands, because that's where Ogaroth is. Random place in Spain. We're going to send our best guy there.
Yeah.
And he summons Ogaroth, which is a pink poo? With an eye?
It was like... Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be like a dick. Like he's
probably it's pinky and fleshy, so it's probably meant to be a dick.
Yeah, especially because it's like it's a one-eyed monster. Yeah.
All right,
but it's like it looks like it looks like an uncircumcised penis with like teeth inside the foreskin, and then just an eyeball attached to the top.
So it's like the enemy of dentata.
Yeah, it's something, all right.
It's something.
And it attacks a bunch of beachgoers and, you know.
So many people.
Yeah. And then we cut to a scene that I was a little confused as to what was going on for a few minutes. So we get, like, scenes of, like, some people in a movie theater. Mm-hmm. And then we also have some scenes of, like, a couple who are just kind of walking around. They're making out. There's just, like, all this kind of, like...
Yeah, love each
I
other.
thought they were, like, going to the movies.
Right.
But no, they are the movie that the people in the movies are watching.
Yeah, there's, like, a Jennifer Lawrence, like, look-alike zombie doll chasing the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she spikes the camera and everything. It's really good.
Yeah, so she ends up attacking the couple, and then we, like... then Ogaroth bursts through the movie screen.
Yeah.
And, you know, attacks all of the people in the theater.
Right. And he's attacking everyone outside now.
And then we get just a man somehow recognizes the summoner.
Right.
And does he call him a Bruja?
Yeah, Bruja. It's witch. Bruja!
Yeah.
He just calls him Bruja.
And so then they get in a fight.
Yeah. Surprisingly, normal guy wins. Literally punches the Demon King out of his shoes.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a fight.
Yeah. Yeah, so then we cut to the hippie parade that was mentioned earlier. And like for a second I was like, what is going on? And I was like, oh, this is the hippie parade. Gotcha. Okay. This is Chekhov's hippie parade.
Yeah.
Of course it had to happen. And then, Ogoroth shows up and starts, attacking all of the hippies.
Right. I like how they must have done this. I feel like they did this at a pride parade and were like, hey, listen, we're going to do this for a movie, so cheer when you're being eaten. Because that's what half of the people do. They're really excited to be eaten.
And so then, we have that for a couple seconds, and then it cuts to the East Village, and the title card says something about how terrible the East Village is. I can't remember the exact language. And we have a man walking around with a bucket on his head, and then a bunch of girls who are apparently really big Ramones fans.
Yeah.
They're all saying Gabba Gabba Hey and wearing Ramones clothes, and those people all get attacked and killed by Ogoroth. So he's just kind of making the rounds of New York, attacking all the different cartoonish sort of trope people, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Then we cut back to the reporters. They've gotten to the basement part of the church.
Right. As they walk through, they're getting gently groped by the undead as they reach out and just brush their hands against them.
Yeah. And they kind of try to introduce themselves hey, we're here to help. We're, do you know anything about this whole situation?
Just, hey, we would like to interview you, Cult of the Undead, as you do. But what happens? One of those pesky zombies steals Michaela's camera that has all the information on it and rides off on a fucking skateboard, baby.
Yeah. This movie, so the last movie just felt crazy. This movie, it feels like we promise this movie exists. You need to go watch this just so you don't think that we're losing our minds.
Yeah, no, my inane ramblings have not infected Anthony to where he's actually seeing what I see now. It really is a thing.
But yeah, so he takes off on a skateboard, but then they just kind of make a circle.
Right.
And
Michaela grabs this freaking cult knife, I guess that's the best way you could describe it, and just starts wildly slashing at the skateboard guy. Nothing should even have made contact with how wildly she was swinging this thing. But eventually she does hit, effectively kills the zombie. The camera goes flying up. She grabs it and jumps on the skateboard. Wait, I was too busy laughing to realize where she went after that. I was like, what the hell? That's badass, but what the hell?
Yeah. And so around this time, Orbert shows up, and he shows Claudia her husband's reanimated head.
Right. And what does the head do? The first thing he's like, why are you wearing that? You embarrass me everywhere we go. You haven't seen her in 6 years.
And
you've been ahead.
The way they do the head too, it's he just has black or red tissue paper hanging down to look like guts a little bit or whatever.
And he's wearing black, a black unitard or whatever. Just yeah.
But of course, so then the undead people start attacking, and then we get another music video, which is there's a hip hop song,
right,
and an extended fight scene.
But my question is, where did Orbert find that pitchfork? He just has a pitchfork when he jumps up on this stage to this club. Presumably, that's all this was a dance club.
Yeah, and he definitely didn't have it when he walked in,
right.
But somewhere along the lines, got a pitchfork.
So he's fighting off the zombies who are now trying to kill him. And then we get Claudia and was it Claudia and Margaret, or was it the?
Yeah, Margaret finally sees Claudia in the crowd and recognizes who she is. Yeah. So she pulls out a machine gun and just starts shooting up the place. And she manages to kill basically everybody except for who she's specifically trying to kill. She just mows down tons and tons of zombies.
Well, Information Man finally proves useful in the fact that he's like, you know what this place has? A lot of carbon monoxide. The carbon monoxide levels are too high. If someone were to fire off a gun, it might explode.
So and he tells Yulpy this, right? And so then they go tell Margaret,
no mention of carbon monoxide at all before this. He just brings it up.
Yeah.
How does he know? Does he smell it? Does he have that ability?
I have no idea. But so they're worried the machine gun is going to ignite and blow up the place.
Right.
But
Information Man ain't going nowhere without those rings, baby. There's lots of rings to be had.
yeah, so like he's telling them that like we need to escape right away. This building's about to blow. But real quick, I'm gonna do this.
Right.
So they do all manage to get outside, and then the building explodes in like a very like, cartoonish, silly way.
Yeah. Oh, before they leave, Orbert's like, "Hey, Claudia, you know why you're coming with me? Because I got this reanimation fluid." And somehow that like convinces her eyes glow, like she's possessed by the reanimation fluid.
Yeah. Then, basically all the principal characters get out, don't get blown up. And, Info Guy has, like, his rings. He's, like, showing off all the good rings he got.
The undead have the best rings.
And then Michaela just gets eaten by Ogaroth.
Right. Hey, guys, we survived eaten by Ogaroth.
But the information man has some more information.
Don't you know? If you get eaten by Ogaroth, you don't die. You just get transported to a parallel dimension. What? Thank you, exposition man.
And so if his exposition wasn't enough, then they cut to the author
Right.
who is like, so Michaela going to this other dimension, which Ogaroth's been eating people left and right, but somehow Michaela's the one that does it. Right. So Michaela going to the other dimension caused some sort of rift, which allowed Verum to spill back into our dimension, because I guess he was stuck in the same dimension that she got sent to or something.
Don't forget, we have one more fight between Lloyd and Schooly D, where Schooly D finally announces, "Oh no, Ogaroth is attacking!" And the White House gets destroyed.
Yeah.
Presumably with Schooly D in it, of course.
Yeah. Then we get, I think we might have seen this once or twice in the background, but we get this scene where there's like a miniature city that is just made out of like shoeboxes and like Crayola markers. Like it is so low budget. But then they've got like the heroes sort of superimposed in front of it, like running in, they're running in place basically.
So good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But you know what else we get at this point? We get our 8th music video as Ogaroth just goes rampaging through the city.
Yep. So he's just killing people through this miniature city left and right. Then I think is when we actually get where like the White House gets blown up, right?
Oh no, you're right. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead.
Yeah. So like, because the chief is talking to the police, he's saying he wants to.
We're gonna nuke them. We're gonna nuke them high. From if you're a Troma fan, you know what that is. So.
And there's also he says every problem can be solved by violence.
Solved with violence.
Which is just such a great cheesy line, because like that's literally the opposite of every single thing you will ever hear in any other movie ever.
Right.
And he also says, the president says, if you set off this nuke, it may kill millions, thousands, maybe even hundreds.
Yeah.
And like just like that kind of dumb line is just that just gets me every time. Like just switching the order of those makes that so funny.
And it's a simple joke, but I love it.
And then we get the chief. He says he's not going to nuke the city. He created a giant laser, and he's going to blow the city up with the laser. And then that's when we see the Ogaroth actually destroy the White House. And right after the president dies, but then we get one more scene of the president. We get a flashback.
Yeah, it literally says his life flashes before his eyes.
And so now he's the senator, and he's talking to Orbert, who is just like obviously in full mad scientist mode, just talking crazy. The senator's like trying to hire him to do some science work, basically.
Yeah, science! Yeah, this is at the point where Orbert's wife has just officially died.
Yeah.
And he's very upset about this.
Yeah. And then we cut to the heroes, and they are following Orbert and Elizabeth and Claudia back to the lab. So they get back to the lab, and Elizabeth kind of, I guess, goes in the other room, and immediately Orbert is like, actually, Claudia, you're the one that I really love.
Right. You're the one for me. And Liz is apparently sad about this, because she literally goes all the pieces. She goes all the pieces in that she starts foaming in the mouth, falls back down some, like, industrial, like, metal stairs, and bursts into 1,000 pieces.
And then Verum just crawls through the TV.
Yeah, well, this is when Orbert's, like, groping Claudia at this point. And Verum's, like, Ghost Verum or Verum in the other dimension is like, wait a second! That's my one true love.
Yeah, and then the author pops in real quick and is just like, the final fight had begun.
Right.
And yeah, then we get, not only, it's not the final fight, it's like 3 final fights happening simultaneously that we...
But regardless of how many fights it is, it's definitely the 9th music video.
Like, I think there's 2 different songs played throughout, maybe even 3.
Right.
Like, there's the like sex worker, streetwalker song from earlier gets played again. I think it's maybe called Girl of the Night. But then there's also like a punk song that's going at other parts of it. And the Girl of the Night, it's streetwalker, so it's kind of like hair metal, kind of glammy or whatever. Yeah. So there's like sword fighting and like kung fu fighting and...
Right. So Verum is fighting Orbert, Claudia is fighting Margaret, and who is it? Who's fighting Ogaroth?
The police chief is at first.
Oh,
he's just firing a machine gun at Ogaroth and then is eaten.
Yeah. Yep. Summarily.
Yeah. And then Yulpy starts yelling starts yelling at Ogaroth, like, Michaela, come out, you're safe, or what. Oh, and then Orbert also fights just an absolute perfect recreation of the Harryhausen claymation skeletons.
Oh, let's not forget the fact that when Marge grabs Claudia and jumps out the window to destroy them both, like at that point, I was like, oh, Claudia's probably actually dead because Verum gets a power-up. And that's when he turns into the Harryhausen skeleton, the Trilogy of Terror Zuni doll.
Yeah, and Orbert has a chainsaw all of a sudden, so it feels like it's probably a little bit of Army of Darkness in there as well. Mm-hmm. But then we see that Margaret and Claudia have actually fallen through a skylight, so they land, and Orbert just suddenly has a hammer and hits Margaret with it.
Right, yeah. Margaret thinks she has the upper hand on Claudia. She has a gun pointed right at her head. And then just all of a sudden, boom, hammer to Margaret's head.
Which he just had a chainsaw a minute ago. I don't know why he downgraded to a hammer, but I guess it's sneakier if you're trying to come up behind somebody.
Yeah, you'll hear the...
But yeah, so then like Orbert like hugs Claudia, but... Then Ogaroth grabs Orbert and pulls him away while Verum like holds on to Claudia and like, keeps her safe so she doesn't get dragged away with Orbert.
So Ogaroth then, because we know if Orbert were to be eaten, he would just be in a parallel universe. So Ogaroth decides to just chuck him to the ground, presumably killing him.
Yeah, he actually gets impaled on a big spike.
Yeah.
Like a very cartoonish, like pointy mountain top.
So it looks like, how are we going to defeat Ogaroth? Everyone else is kind of out of the picture, except for Information Man, who he somehow has that like cult dagger and he just stabs Ogaroth in the head.
He's like riding on Ogaroth's back, basically, is stabbing him in the eye and head,
But somehow also communicating with Michaela, who also has a version of that same weapon.
Yeah. And so, she manages to, like, come flying out of Ogaroth's mouth as...
They use the power of friendship to a degree.
Yeah. And so, like, Information Man and Michaela are both falling, and they get pulled together in, mid-fall.
I forget what he says, but she just looks at him and is like, you're such a dick.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll second that, yeah.
And then we get a scene that is just so... This being thrown in at the end is so hilarious because it's just so pure nonsense when, like, the movie should be wrapping up.
Right.
We get a guy who... It's played by John Brennan, the guy who does all the music for The Last Drive-In. Mm-hmm. And he's just, like, a very stereotypical New York guy.
Fuck New York.
Yeah, he's like, I hate New York. This hot dog's raw. And, like, he's just like, fuck Jersey, fuck New York. Mm-hmm. And then... The police chief's death ray laser goes off, and it manages to perfectly shoot the guy's hot dog and cook it.
I love New York!
So somehow this massive laser that was going to destroy all of New York, all it did was just cook a single hot dog.
That's perfect trauma. Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so we also have Verum and Claudia ending up in each other's arm. We have kind of a Harley Quinn romance novel scene where Claudia's hair is getting blown gently by the breeze as Verum's leaning in to kiss her.
Then we get Yulpy, who is like doing her like reporting on the scene, wrapping up the story, and she says, it's almost as if this whole situation was a parody of a horror movie, or
a
perhaps multiple horror movies.
Right, and she can't hold it together. She laughs, but
Yeah,
it's
she
like,
just-
all right, you earned that.
Yeah, literally just breaks on camera. And they don't cut. Like it's
Nope.
fantastic.
One take, we'll do it. Boom.
And yeah, so then we get like the end on the screen as like the happy ending with like Claudia and Verum kissing. And so it feels like that's the end, but then Margaret then rescues West and like
No, Westcraft.
Westcraft, yeah. East and West
Yeah,
meet. And you know, she's like, I need your help to defeat Claudia.
Right. So sequel bait.
Yeah. And you know, then we get the author at the end, and he says some stuff about like reality is really just another illusion in God's bag of tricks. And then like the last thing is just Orbert staring you down right in the camera, and he's just like, I'm back, bitches.
Yeah. And then we finally actually end.
Yeah.
So no abrupt ending. Man, I gotta say, with this Reanimator, like months, few weeks after the month,
Yeah.
I'm missing some science wheel.
Yeah. Yep. There's been the science in Reanimator is a very different kind of science.
Oh yeah, it's a different animal altogether. Maybe we'll get back to that soon.
Yeah.
But what a movie.
Yeah, and you know, like I said at the beginning, it's chaotic, it's a mess. The plot is full of holes. But it doesn't feel like the last movie because it's just fun. And like when you know you're along for the ride, clearly they're having a good time. They want you to have a good time. We're not going to get bogged down with like making sure everything fits together perfectly because it's just it's just silly. And like all the music videos, they're totally unnecessary. And like the movie's like 2 hours long, and like you cut some of those, and it would have been like a more reasonable length movie.
Yeah.
But like,
There's a lot you could cut.
yeah.
But it's like you and a bunch of your theater friends and your music friends all got together and made a movie.
Yeah, and so it's like they just want to put everything they can. Like it feels like all the songs are probably like, "Hey, I've got a song if you got room for it," and they're like, "Yeah, sure, we'll put it in, and we'll figure something out." And okay, we can put that over when we'll just have some people dancing for a while. It'll be fine. And yeah, so it does feel like like the best version of like low budget, no budget filmmaking, where it's just like we're just gonna get the gang together and have a good time, and what happens, and
there's clearly a bunch of people who worked at a club was like, hey, we'll talk to the boss and we'll film at the club for 2 nights.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like, you can't go wrong with something like that. It's just fun.
It's fun, yeah, no doubts. Like whereas the other one was kind of just painful.
Yeah.
Like, man, I'm still tired.
Yeah. Yep. So this was. I'm glad we kind of ended on a more fun note though. Yeah. Like this definitely had more of the spirit of the originals, in that like we're gonna be campy and silly, maybe to a degree above what they were doing in the originals, but still a very good time.
Yeah. And you could tell because everybody was laughing and smiling. So what else can you say? It's a good movie.
Yeah.
At least if you want to have fun. Now, if you're looking for something that's coherent and that is heavily reliant on plot and is very serious, this is not your movie.
Yeah, no.
Also, what are you doing listening to us? What are you I respect that and I appreciate it, but seriously. Nah.
So you got anything else on this one? Or?
Man, that's it for me. I mean, that's all I could say. But so where can they find us?
So you can find us on all the socials, Twitter and Instagram at The Frankencast. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. And of course you can, send us rates and reviews and, likes and subscribes on all of your various platforms, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Anthony, I hate to say this, but I think I just broke a mirror. I got a feeling I got some bad luck. You know what would make it even worse?
If it was Friday
the 13th, part 6. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so, our episodes come out on Fridays, and of course, and next week is Friday the 13th, so we had to do a Friday the 13th movie, and 6 is the one that is definitely paying some tribute to Frankenstein in a lot of ways, in obvious ways, and like also like the director has said, like, I was very inspired by Frankenstein, so it seemed like a good fit. So we are going to talk, and it also just happens to be like, I think my favorite Friday the 13th movie. So,
and it's the first with the actually truly undead Jason.
Yep. So join us next week for Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, Part 6.
And as always, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Freaking Cast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velazquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Freaking Cast, or send us a letter at thefreakingcast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.